Steve Bellamy also will be dropping by from the Tennis Channel. And Sal Powell gets us set for T.O.'s return to the Eagles tonight with Donovan McNabb. It's all coming your way. The final Grand Slam event of the year starts on Monday in Flushing Meadows with the U.S. Open. We're pleased to welcome in Steve Bellamy, the president and founder of the Tennis Channel, who joins us. How are you today, Steve?
Great. How you doing?
Doing very well. It's going to be an exciting time right now for tennis fans. Of course, in the men's draw, there's Roger Federer and everyone else. Is this a good or a bad thing to have one player dominate the game the way he is right now?
Well, I think tennis is really fortunate that we have what is, in my opinion, one of the greatest athletes in the history of the sport playing. And what tends to happen whenever you have one guy dominate for a while, everybody focuses their practice routines on beating that particular guy, so it becomes tougher for him to dominate. And this year, in Roger's quarter, he has David Nalbandian, who is the one guy who's been very successful at taking him out. He's got a 5-2 record against Roger.
You called him one of the most dominating athletes in the sport in the history of tennis. Now, 82 straight weeks as the world's #1 player definitely holds true to what you're saying. But how do you explain the success of Roger Federer?
I think he's literally one of the greatest athletes of all time. If you break down an athlete by all the different disciplines, strength, speed, agility, court sense, this guy has it all. He's the best in every single department, just about, or one of the top couple. You put it together and you got a Roger Federer.
How do you think he'll be received by the American fans at the U.S. Open as he comes in as the defending champ, but clearly he'll be matched up sometimes, you imagine, against Americans?
Yeah, I think he has become almost ubiquitous in pop culture, much like tennis history, you know, Guillermo Vilas, Bjorn Borg, Martina Navratilova. It takes a little longer for them to gestate, but then they become, you know, there's no boundaries of country.
As far as the Americans involved, describe the atmosphere we'll see on center court when an Andy Roddick or an Andre Agassi are in a match.
Certainly, you know, we're pro-American. The Americans love it when their boys take the court. The Andy Roddick one's going to be a real neat quarter in the third quarter, because you've got Robbie Ginepri, another great American who's playing fantastic tennis, meeting Andy in the second round, and Robbie just beat him in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, so that'll be a great match.
Steve, Andy Roddick obviously has a very solid resume, but majors have been a problem for him. What does he need to do as far as adjustments to make sure he can get back on the top level at the game?
Well, I think that, you know, his Achilles heel has been Roger Federer, and it's unfortunate for him that such a talent is playing at the same time as he is. But I think if you took a page out of Nadal and out of Nalbandian's book, they keep Roger out on the court a lot longer, and they're the only two guys who have really been successful with him. So I think Andy ought to keep the ball and play a lot longer, kind of get a little less out of the first strike offense, and make this guy hit 30, 40 shots a point.
Do you look at the young Spaniard, Rafael Nadal, as the next Roger Federer?
I think, you know, tennis is interesting because we've got all these different court surfaces. He is the game's greatest player on clay, no doubt. He's probably the best retriever we've ever had in the sport. But I don't think he quite gets to the Federer level on all the surfaces.
What do you think adjustments as far as Nadal is concerned that he'll need to make to compete both on a hard court and in the U.S.?
I would bet you anything that he is really focusing all of his energy now on doing better on hard courts and grass. And you know, unfortunately, you know, his DNA is wired like that of a big top spinner, so it will be tougher. But I think he's got to have a little more penetrating balls, a little less loopy balls.
Steve, in the women's draw, you have Maria Sharapova. She's the #1 seed. What shape is her game in right now?
She certainly is striking the ball extremely clean. In her quarter, she's got Daniladu first round, which, you know, could be challenging, but I think she gets through that. And then a young player from Czechoslovakia who's amazing, named Nicole Vadisova. But I think she's still she's a good contender to get to the finals or the semis and could easily win the tournament.
Any explanation? You have 4 Russians ranked or seeded in the top 10 going into this tournament. Any explanation for that?
You know, I would blame it all on Anna Kournikova. I mean, she kind of came out of the box and became this giant superstar, and it showed girls over there that, wow, you know, you can really succeed in something. And now you've just had a bunch of, I'm not going to say they're followers, but she certainly was a trendsetter in that.
And Sharapova, like Kournikova, to some degree has become the face of the sport, also for her talent, not just for her look. Do you think she can handle that type of pressure, or how does she handle that type of pressure?
I think she has been spectacular. I mean, she does not get involved in anything other than playing tennis. I mean, she does commercials and a few things, but she has really made herself a tennis player first, and I guarantee you, she's a young girl. She'll mature into a much, much better player and will be one of the greatest players of all time.
Size up the top Americans in the women's draw. You have Lindsay Davenport and the two Williams sisters. What will they need to do to fare well in this event?
Well, it's really interesting the way the draw played out. In the second quarter, at the bottom of that quarter, you have Venus playing Serena. So, they're going to play each other way earlier in the draw than they would ever normally play each other. And then after they play each other, they got to play Clijsters in that quarter. So it's going to be very challenging for them. I think Lindsay's at the very bottom of the draw, and she's probably got a little easier road to get through. She plays Lee first round, and this is her church. She's a clean ball striker, probably the greatest we've ever had, and this is a good surface for her to do well. And a former champ as well. The Russians are front and center. The Americans are front and center. What about the two Belgian stars? Where do they fit into the mix at the Open? Clijsters, again, is in that second quarter where she's got to tackle the winner of Venus and Serena. So that's a very tough quarter final. And then Henin has got Mauresmo and Pierce in her quarter. Pierce is extremely dangerous on this surface and at the U.S. Open. All right, we're putting you on the spot. We need a winner for the men and for the women. Steve, what do you have? I'm crossing my fingers. We get an Andre or an Andy. It is certainly a good shot that Roger Federer can do it. On the women's side, I probably would have picked Clijsters, but it would be a very, very close race. And then when the draw came out and having Venus and Serena in her quarter, it makes it tougher, but I'd probably still give the nod to her just on her ball striking and how healthy and fit she is right now. All right, we're putting you on the spot. So you picked Clijsters, then I wasn't sure who you picked on the men's side. I'll probably go Federer, but 50% chance Federer, and then a 50% chance is one of those other top players. All right, we'll wait and see if anyone can unseat the champ in Roger Federer. Steve Bellamy, president and founder of the Tennis Channel, we appreciate your time and enjoy the U.S. Open. Good, thanks for covering.